Well, hello there, humans, bees, earthlings, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, if you're lucky enough to be doing it too. I'm Bushka, Blitz. If this is your first time on channel, haven't you picked a jolly old day to be alive and joining us here in tanking Utopia? This is the AMX 30 Premiere, the prototype. The 1er, as they call it on Kath and Kim. And this is hell of a tank, really interesting. I enjoyed it a lot playing it. I didn't enjoy the people that I was playing it with for the most part. And the first few minutes of this 21 odd minute long review will be me having an absolutely monumental whinge. Going back to my pommy roots and complaining about bloody everything. I'll get to that in just a second. For instance, I'll get to this Leopard PTA in just a second. You can see him in spawn. He looks AFK. He's on the flat. He's not moving. He's not AFK. He's just being a muppet. And I ran into an awful lot of muppets with this tank. So I had to show a bit of perseverance because, to be fair, if you had just gone on the first 8 or 9 games, you would have thought that this was possibly the worst tank ever crafted by the hand of, well, whichever head developer first touted this one up as a runner. But it's not. It's actually a bloody lovely tank. It's a tank that shows a lot of class and a lot of, well, it's got its own personal idiosyncrasies. And that's the things that I really like about tanks. If you knew anything about my channel, you'd know that the tanks I tend to have the most time for are the ones that are a little bit unique and have their own selling point. And selling point is pretty controversial as a term of reference on this tank because it's coming in via the fabled Crate network, the great gambling anonymous network of microtransactions that goes on these days in games. Now, I'm not a big fan of it, but that's neither here nor there. A lot of people have spent the money and they've got the tank, or they want to know how to blow it up, or they just want to know whether it's worth spending the money on. And I think that's the important service that I'm going to work towards for you guys here today. The Premiere is a different tank. It's not OP at all, but I actually had a much worse record than I would, in fact, expect myself to have in this tank. And that's because small sample size theatre will kill you if you try and say, oh my god, the teams are terrible, everyone's a muppet, blah 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 blah. Well, that's not really fair if you're only taking 10 games. And I knew that would come around and that eventually the teams would turn in my favour because, man, we only ever really, when we're having issues, we go, oh my god, everyone sucks. But when we're winning 10 in a row, we're like, oh my god, oh my god. And yeah, it's just not like that. It's usually somewhere in between. Like, this is all from my first 3 or 4 games, right? Look at this guy. I got up the top first in a tier 10 match. I pushed, and yeah, he didn't care. Look at our ST1 up there. We called right. We called right, and the ST1 and the SU just decided to go rolling off on their own. And like so many Muppets before him, when he died, he immediately turned towards, you know, blaming the team. This T28 Proto, I know there's an IS-8 over here. No one else is going to deal with him. So I'm going to go and deal with the IS-8, who just shot my T28 Proto, by the way. I'm the guy who goes and deals with him. Guess what happens when it all goes to hell in a handbasket? I do the most damage, and you know who gets upset at me? The guy that I actually went and helped. Watch him. Our absolute muppet. The T28 Proto there, Chariotti or whatever his name is, he is dirtbag of the day as he starts going hog on me, the bloke that actually went around the corner and stopped him from getting his 50mm thick sides blown up. And he was pushing hill on the only map in the known universe that a TD is still allowed to camp on. Pull your head in, sunshine, go down, look in the mirror, and give yourself an uppercut. That's right, I'm done. Okay, cleansing, out with the bad. There you go, massive 1300 damage from the Proto, who was running his mouth like a Saturday afternoon race caller on Slipper Day. Now, once I got through the bad stuff and started seeing what the tank could actually do, well, I was pleasantly surprised because, golly gee willikers, it can really do the business, and it is very, very different to any other medium I've played at Tier 9 before. That's because it's got a lot of commonalities with a lot of different tanks. It is very low profile. It feels quite low to the ground. And I think that's actually a bit of a falsehood. I think there are a lot of tanks that are lower than this, but the fact is that the turret is quite thin. It's not a big, chunky turret. And that allows you, when you're going to go hull down, to expose very, very limited, when you're ridge fighting, very, very limited amounts of turret. And we'll get to that. I'm going to give you a full breakdown on the armor in just a second. The other thing is that the turret kind of feels like a composite turret, a lot like a Cent 1's turret, where it's a lot stronger than people give it credit for because there are weak points on it. But remember, most people do not just sit there not moving and let you hit those weak points. And as long as you're doing that, then, well, you're going to be all right. You really are. Next, it's got such similar penetration numbers to two of my most favourite Tier 9 mediums, the E50 and the M46 pattern. In fact, its pen is better than both those tanks on its AP rounds. And on its APCR rounds, which it has as a premium ammunition, it is in fact pretty much the same as the pattern and only 7mm less than the A50 at 263. It's got 7mm less than the A50 at 270. And the pattern's got 265. So if you're used to driving those tanks, then you're going to have no struggles whatsoever with the pen, even though it's a Tier 8 gun. It's a bit of a misnomer because it's just the same as those dudes there. And I like those dudes a lot. So if you can drive those dudes, you can drive this dude. Its accuracy, while not up to the E50's stellar laser-like standards, is in fact very good compared to the M46, 0.326, which is right around the middle for a Tier 9 medium. In fact, I feel really bad for the Type 61 because it's the same accuracy as the Type 61. It's got the same gun depression, 10 degrees, which is an excellent number, just like the Type 61. And it's got the same kind of pickup that I find the Type 61 to have as well, which is damning with faint praise. The only difference is that this one has 781 horsepower and a 60 km/h type speed. The Type 61 has 664 horsepower and a 48 km/h top speed, and worse terrain resistance stats by 0.1 on its hard terrain and the same on its soft and medium. So it's like a faster Type 61 with a little more pickup and a better turret, but a inferior alpha gun. Now let's talk about that turret. See how low it is? This is with the Cent 1, right? And when I'm running around with the Cent 701, and when I'm running around with the Cent 701, I'm running around with a gun that is seriously good. And look at it. This is with a lot of penetration. This is with calibrated shells. So I'm running 260mm of APCR penetration here. And yet, even unmoving at about 200 meters, you can see the value of that turret. It's not impervious, but it's very bloody hard to pen. And if you're not sitting still with it, you'll do wonders. Now, the trade-off with this tank, obviously, is that the hull armor is absolutely pants. The hull armor is atrocious, and it does have weak hatches. There's a big hatch on the right-hand side of the turret that is very, very easy to pen if you've got high-powered heat. You can smash it in there, and there are areas of the turret either side that are quite easy to pen at either side of the gun mantlet. The gun mantlet is exceptionally strong. But you're going to get put up to Tier 10, and when you do, you will come across a lot of large tanks. A lot of large tanks with guns that are 120 and 150 and HESH tanks, for instance, like the Cent 701. You might have heard of it. It's called the 183. And if you get hit by a 183 in this thing, anywhere else other than your turret, you will be picking up your teeth in a sock because you have a god-awful chassis. And that's the catch with this tank. You don't have massive DPM. Again, I mean, I've been telling you that Type 61's not that great forever. And it's not that great. There's a crosshatch of armor just under the turret that's actually reasonably decent when angled up. You can see just where that hatch is there on the right-hand side of the tank as we look at it. But that's with cheap HESH, 105mm pen HESH. And that's just about ready to pen the front of your tank with cheap HESH. If you switch to high explosive squash head, the real stuff, oh good golly, you're going to get wrecked. And if you turn the tank on its side, cheap HESH goes all the way through because you got like a 30mm non-spaced side plate. Any tank in Tier 10 can HE pen for a full roll the area above your tracks. So if you get hit from the side by a Tier 10 tank and it's a TD, and it fires high explosive. Ah, yeah, high pitched nervous laughter. You got me? So let's have a look at a couple of games where we actually put the tank through its paces. And I'm going to first talk about it doesn't have explosive DPM, but it's got good DPM. I was talking about this before with the Type 61. It's got the same, I'm lying. It's got slightly more DPM than the Type 61. Look, if I was going to rate this tank above any mediums at tier 10, at tier 9, I would take it above the WZ-120. I would take it above the T-54A1. I would take it above the Type 61. That would be about it. Okay? It doesn't earn any extra credits that I can tell. And it's got a 100mm gun, which is cool. And I think that's another big negative that pulls it back a bit. And one of the reasons I like it, because it's different. You got to play it a little bit more cleverly. And that people might be upset at that, but I think that's about fair. It's about mid-bracket as a tier 9 medium. In certain situations, it will be better. Like if you can get it hull down behind a bush like this, you do very, very well, because you can see how low, flat the turret is. As you're pulling away, you're not leaving big hatches and stuff behind, like the detritus that they can snapshot into you. And I really like that. And you can see I'm doing the same thing. I'm just being sensible. And you've really got to admire, like a tank that, even against all these big guns, I know there's a grill over there somewhere. They've got like a Jaeger-Roo, they've got a Tort. I know these tanks exist and they are on the battlefield, and they're probably looking at me right now. And I know if they can get side shots into me, wow, they can really make me regret my life decisions. But they're not going to, because I'm not being an idiot. They will eventually, because, you know, there gets to be a point very, very soon where I just quite literally can't account for all the incoming shells. But for all that, I'm playing a pretty solid role in a tier 10 game with my tier 9 premium tank. Now, premium is a misnomer, isn't it? Because when we think premium, we think a tank that's going to make money. And let's be honest, that's kind of where that whole premium thing, yeah, I tell, 2 of our guys went to cap. Like, I was so salty by this stage. I mean, really, they're probably not doing the right thing. Like, they went to cap in a tier 10 match. 2 heavies. Like, you're wasting 2 tanks until they decide they have to move forward, and then they just kill you. I mean, and this is the teams I was getting, right? But they made bad decisions, but probably didn't deserve me to call them Muppets. Anyway, I roll up here. The Tort's going to know I'm here. I clear the ST1. I pull back, low profile, works a treat. E50M can't hit me. I know he doesn't have like crazy fast reload. We've got 6.65 seconds or whatever. Blow that. I got to angle back. The guy that hits me there that I wasn't expecting to hit me, but I was prepared for the Tort, was the Grill, who's still in spawn. He hit me for 666, the little grub. Sign of the devil. But I knew if the Tort was going to come and get some action from me, he was going to have to do with my mate, the Jaeger-Roo, sitting at the back, like that T-28 Pro should have been in the first game. And he obediently blows the crap out of the Tort, who crossed over and just had quite enough of that stupid Premiere and took all his hit points, which was great, and I just finished him off. Now, I know that Grill's over there somewhere. I'm worried about getting spotted by that E50, so I'm going to reset camo, right, and then I'm going to try and use the terrain to actually get some shots off, get behind this low bush. I'm going to do a little bit of bush camping. I'm going to do some stit bedding, and affirmative, I say. They say they're pointing out a sector. I'm like, yeah, no, man, that's sector. That's where that's where those clowns are. We know them. There they are. Excellent. Snuck out. Good. Jaeger-Roo. These 2 Jaeger-Roos, hats off, and I give them both effective players at the end. They play their TDs absolutely brilliantly. One of them is playing it like a pseudo-heavy now that we don't have any heavy tanks left. He's really stepped into that role. Another one of them is at the back and has been holding that left flank. I'm pushing all the way up now behind this rock because there's a lot of tanks that I don't want to deal with, and I only have 1 shot left to give the enemy. And then I want to slide under and get around behind that grill, which is exactly what I'm going to do in just a wee while. And you can see the mobility of the tank is just fine. It's going to get the job done with this very clearly. Ripper. The Jaeger-Roo's pushed up. I'm like, negative, I can't cover you there if the E50 pushes round. But he's cool. He's got his angles all sorted out. Excellent. He's pumped one into that grill. If the E50 comes around there, I'll clear him for you. Let's do it. Let's do it. You're a great man. Jaeger-Roo, I'm a really big fan of what you do. You're going to cover him. Right, that's fine. I'll go around here. and I'll cover the grill for you. Oh, there's their T54A1. He's gone to the races himself. He's decided to give himself a little bit of time off and go on cap, which is an interesting format. And there's the grill. Going to do a no-scope, typical Bushka no-scope, which is like, do I like to make life harder for myself than I have to? Yes, indeed, I do. And I'm thinking, I'm all one-shot. That E1 is not that bad a player. He's kept alive this long in a tier 10 game. I bet you he's going to roll straight back down here towards me. Lo and behold, it's exactly where he's coming. So I'm very, very happy to go up here. And the tank's moving just fine. It's quite mobile, hey. And that 300mm, 310 alpha gun gets its hits in. It's got enough penetration, even in a tier 10 match. If you're playing your cards right, it more than covers the ground well enough, and it gets more than enough damage in. And our mate the Jaegeroo says, no, you won't be going around there. You'll be sitting down and liking it. And there you go. Now, that was not the perfect situation for the tank at all, really. That map there was not the perfect situation for the tank, because it's a very close encounter hull down situation on the hill. You don't really want to be stuck there in this tank, because if anyone rolls over, you don't have the armor to actually bounce a shot with anything other than the top of your turret. So you can be really, really quickly cleaned up. So I had to work the flanks and be a little bit clever and just grind down a score. And we didn't do a lot of damage very quickly, but we got to over 3k by the end of the road. This one, however, is a little bit different. This is where I'm going to work the middle, because I was really excited to finally get a hold of a map where I could go and work the middle. I hadn't had Dead Rail. I hadn't had this one here, Canyon. I'd really struggled to find a map that had a nice fat hull down spot in the middle. No rock field, none of that. It was very, very tough. So I was pretty happy when we finally rolled out Canyon, and you can see why. It's purpose built for maps like this. And we got spotted, so I know I'm going to indicate where their medium tank is. It spotted me. I know that because that is a renowned Bushka spot. I like to go up there. There's some trees there. You can spot them as they're crossing, and if they pull back to try and see who spotted them, you shoot them. I'm not that stupid. I'm not pulling back to see who spotted me. This guy is made of won't get penned armor. Like, I hit him twice, and both times I managed to hit the gun mantlet in the middle of SU-122-54. Hats off to him. He's playing pretty aggressively in a TD, so good on him. This Jaegeroo up there, I pull back like, I'm really T30, you want to do that? Okay, do it. And yeah, he gets big time HE splashed by, I believe it was the Borsig. 400 HE splash from the Borsig, and something else hit him as well. That's a rough gig, hey. So he's probably not keen to go and hold that middle spot, which suits me because I'd like to get involved here just a little bit more, and I'm looking for opportunities to get some work done. Now, the gun is accurate enough. The penetration is good enough. If you don't think it's good enough, then you're wrong. Like, you just are. If you've not seen the M46 review I did recently and the E50 review I did recently, then you just don't understand how to position yourself on the battlefield to actually use a relatively low penetration medium gun. And I think one of the things that growing up in an era where there was ferociously low penetration on some of your more fancied mediums at tier 9, like the T54, for instance, which had 201mm of pen on the gun. Watch it, here he goes again, straight in the gun mantlet. Go get wrecked, you sneaky, cheeky grub. Was that if you didn't like firing a lot of heat, and your name wasn't Snake Eyes, because Snake fired nothing but heat in that thing, you had to learn to shoot things where you'd hit them. And for me, where I'd hit them was the weak points, and it meant that you worked your way around the battlefield to hit weak points. So that's all you do in this tank, and the pen is actually nowhere near as bad as some of those olden days. Like, there's been pen buffs to a lot of tanks that had low hit point, low pen numbers back then in the medium trees, and this does not suffer that much at all. And you can see I'm just working this middle section here, using gun depression, finally get a shot in this bloke, and it's one of the full rolls a la the new light tank squirrel. That's my second full roll in this game, which I was very happy about. I'm also doing a T34 and 2 review, just quietly. It benefits a lot from that skill. Anyway, I digress. So you've got gun depression, you've got mobility, you've got a very solid top of the turret. All those things combine to make a very, very drivable tier 9 medium tank. And a tier 9 medium tank that adds a little bit of vive la différence to the gameplay. Anyway, boys and girls, look, I hope you enjoyed that. Regardless of how you think or feel about the crates, that's the tank that comes out of them. If you're around tomorrow, and this may date pretty badly, but if you're around tomorrow, I'm doing the tournament stream for NA, so why not jump on that? That's at 11 o'clock Aussie time, whatever time it is, NA time, whatever time it is in Honduras, or I don't know, but it's 11 o'clock Aussie time, Sydney time. Look out for it, that's GMT plus 10. Stay safe on the battlefield, guys. Smash that like button, and do your level best to be a good human to all the other humans around you as they try and just human about the place independently. We're all doing it. Somebody's got to be doing it to somebody. Stay safe on the battlefield, and bye for now.